afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here and share my story as a refugee. And hopefully this story today will, create awareness. And I believe a lot of, the issues that are happening right now will be solved with Afghanistan, as Bill touched base on. But yes, as Bill said, before I came to Nashville, I lived in one of the world's largest refugee camp in Kenya called Dadaab. And Dadaab is located in the northeastern side of Kenya with over 500,000 population, registered under the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. But before that, my parents, I was actually born in the refugee camp and raised there almost half of my childhood. But my parents were actually running away from the civil war that happened in Somalia in the late 1980s up to 2000, early 2000s. So during that time, I also lost two of my older siblings while my parents were trying to escape the civil war in Somalia at that time. And mainly due to, of course, a lot of the issues that we can all relate to or imagine, simple preventable diseases and other extreme poverty. So then when my parents came to the refugee camp, they were already devastated. They had no children, they were themselves. So I was born luckily. So while living in the refugee camp, my father, was able to obtain a small job with the United Nations, where he was able to work as a food delivery person with the local community, also with the agency called the World Food Programming Agency as well, where they were bringing a lot of food to the refugee camp, so that way we can at least have something to eat. So the Dadaab refugee camp is a very large refugee camp where it's compromised with 5 other different camps within that same region. So we had to do a lot of moving around. When my parents first came to Kenya, the first camp they were set up in was a camp that was on the border of the Somali, nation. So that border particularly was very risky. At one moment, my family and other people that were living in the neighborhood almost got killed by the people they were fleeing away from. So then the United Nations recognized my dad's leadership for at least trying to protect the community that day when the mafia, came in the community to kill us all. So then we ended up moving to another camp where we were able to find better security access with the United Nations assistance. So then from there, they were able to also, register us as an opportunity for us to come to developed nations. We weren't very for sure where we were going to go, but all we knew was that we need to find a better country to build our dreams, to live our fullest potential. So a lot of, like I mentioned, there's over 500,000 refugees living in that camp, very overcrowded. Even the humanitarian supporting agencies cannot fulfill the need of every individual in that, camp. So we were able to be, on the list to hopefully be eligible to come to the United States, if not, maybe Canada, Australia, or other European nations. So we were in that camp for almost a decade and a half, hoping that we'll be resettled in somewhere better to build our life over. So within, those waiting years, as a child in that camp, there was a lot of, devastating experiences where, women and children are dying each day, where we don't have access to a medical facility, access to a doctor, and oftentimes access to basic food. I have witnessed and encountered times where I had to literally go to bed without food again for a night, for sometimes. Although my dad was working for the United Nations as a local, food delivery assistant, he couldn't, with the small money that he was getting, he couldn't really, provide for us, and we were a lot. So at that moment, I was able to work as a child laborer. I was around the age of 8, 9-ish, where I would pick up plastic bottles, but from all over the camp community, and at this time, I wasn't wearing any shoes or anything like that. And infectious diseases was very prevalent in this community, where I could, automatically, get cut with something, and HIV and AIDS are around, and I could have become affected. So I struggled with that, but I continued to do it. I didn't give up. Whatever bags or plastic bottles that I collected each month, the United Nations Environmental Agency would reimburse me for it, and that money I would take it to support my parents and siblings. And also, as a little girl, we were trained how to take care of the family and the household stuff at a very early age. So that way, many young girls were being prepared for their teenage years. So that way, when they reach the age of 14 or 15 years of age, they can be married. So that way, the parents would have less responsibility. But that was a different case for my family. My father specifically understood the value of educating girls. So he was able to put me in a local tutoring or after, it was like a small school for little children. So my father, luckily, he didn't have to pay any cash, but in return to pay the teacher, he would give them the small portion of food that we got from the United Nations as a way to thank the teacher for teaching me at least my ABCs and stuff like that. So, although I was very lucky to have such parents, at the end of the day, there isn't a day where I never heard about a child died, a neighbor's child died, a woman's face is very, heartbreaking because maybe, she keep losing her kids, and you will see a sad husband, his wife died bleeding in the house because there's lack of skilled birth attendant, or there's lack of, access to a simple nurse to help the woman deliver, So a lot of, and usually, with all these wars and everything, women and children are always the ones paying the price for it. And I just don't get it. I wish we don't know the answer. So that was some of the things, I grew up with as a child laborer, as a, just trying to survive each single day, without food and everything. So luckily, one day, we were able to, get selected to come to the United States. This was in 2001. So after a decade and a half of waiting in the refugee camp, we were so happy that, our name was finally posted, and we were among some of the eligible families to be resettled in a better land. So just after we got so happy, we had the news again that this was in 2001. I was very little, but I remember very, very, very well. They told us, hey, the Muday family is postponed to go to America. And we asked what was the issue. Because in the refugee camp, we don't have access to communication resources or news or radio or whatever. So then later on, I find out when I came to the US, the reason why we got delayed was because of the 9/11. So we had to be pushed back with the process of coming to the US, and we waited for another 2 years to come to the US. So instead of coming in 2001, we ended up coming in 2004. And so when we came to the United States, we were resettled in Nashville, Tennessee. We didn't know where we were going because we were randomly, whichever government approves, how many refugees they want to resettle is wherever you're gonna go. We had no choice at that moment. So we just know that we were going to America. We didn't know where we were going. But we find out that we were coming to Nashville, Tennessee later on. And we were received at the airport by an agency called the Catholic Charities of Tennessee. And these people came with a van, pick us up, welcome us to our furnished apartment, sponsored by their agency. They brought us food and everything, food, clothes, because we all came with one, clothes and one bag for my whole large family, one luggage. So when we came, they welcomed us, they gave us food and everything. So the Catholic Charities, when they usually resettle refugees, they're able to accommodate them or assist them for up to 6 months. So we were assisted by the Catholic Charities up to 6 months. We were able to get our rent paid. My dad had a car donated to him from the Catholic Charities Church. And my dad was able, after the 6 months ended of our, cash assistance, whatever, but the cash assistance, I'm so sorry for my English. we were able, my father, when he got the car donated to him from the church, he was able to get a job at a warehouse. At this time, it was a CD making warehouse in Nashville. It was quite a drive, but I think it was in Shelbyville, I don't remember. But my daddy would drive to that warehouse with his new car. And with that car, there were a lot of other refugee families in the community that didn't have access to transportation to go to their warehouse factory job, like tasting chicken and stuff like that. So my father became the person who would give ride to all of these other refugee, families that were living in the community. So then from there, I was able to get enrolled in school. I went to school. I learned English. I used to attend after school refugee youth program with the Catholic Charities Agency. I was able to do Girls Scout activities during the summer. I was able to attend Girls STEAM Academy during the summer. So I was able to start my life from scratch all over. I felt like my childhood was just beginning, after all these years in the refugee camp. So from there, I became really connected to the staff at the Catholic Charities, the people that represented me. And so they were mentoring me after my high school years. Although I had to move around a lot because when we were new, my daddy once upon a time, we had to leave. He moved us to the projects. So we had to live in a project for a while. Then we moved from the project, we received a Section 8 voucher. Then we went to a Section 8 voucher. Then we ended up getting a house. So even in the United States, I had to move a lot whenever I made friends. It was the same thing that I was going through when I was in the refugee camp because we had to move from a camp to a camp to run away from, this militant terrorist groups, mafias and stuff like that. So this was the same case for me in the United States. I had to move from a better neighborhood to a better neighborhood. And so when that happened, finally I was able to attend a school called Stratford High School my junior year. In that school, I was so happy. They were just building the top floor program, which was under the North O'Brien organization, which is a faith-based organization that supports low-income students to excel and succeed in schools. So I was able to attend that after-school program in my junior year of high school and attend there every evening after school. I never went home. I would improve my ACT, improve my English writing, because I always wanted to go to a four-year university. Although still the thing was that even in my community after we came to the United States, we still have this cultural belief that girls should get married early. They don't need education. They don't need that. So I literally also still had to face some of those challenges even when I was living in Nashville, Tennessee, because it didn't change. Although we in a better country, the cultural mindset was still there. So we had to do a lot of empowerment and so forth to really educate people that educating a girl is educating a generation. So my dad, like I mentioned earlier, he believed in that value. He believed in the value of educating girls. And that's why he was moving us from neighborhood from a project from difficult neighborhoods to another better neighborhood. So that was the purpose for my moving around. And then I got accepted during this time in high school, my junior year. I got accepted to a Bank of America student leadership program. I was the four young people selected in that program among 40,000 applicants in Tennessee. And this was an opportunity for me to represent the state of Tennessee, to represent Tennessee at the Capitol, where I was able to meet Senator Bob Corker at the time. I was able to champion for educational improvement in Tennessee. I was able to do so many things that I realized that global was local even during this experience because of a lot of the crises we even had in Nashville and in Tennessee as a whole, where our healthcare is the worst in the country, in the world, where our maternal mortality rate was very bad even in Memphis compared to other developing countries. So that was kind of, it framed the foundation of believing that global was local. That's why a lot of my work started not from the international global level, but from the local level, because I wanted to make sure Nashville welcomed me. Nashville rebuilt my life. Nashville gave me the opportunity to get an education as a girl. So I wanted to give back. I really wanted to give back, and that's why I decided to continue going for my educational studies. I went to Tennessee State University with a full ride with the help of a lot of local community foundation scholarship in Nashville. I was then able to go to Vanderbilt University, where I did my master's in public health with a focus on global health. And of course, during this duration of my study, I was able to do a lot of leadership and advocacy work locally, nationally, and internationally. So during these times, I was also able to narrow down, because whatever I did, I always tried to connect it to where I came from. Because today, for me, it's a privilege to be in front of you guys talking to you all. I could have been among, one of the 7 children that are being born today in Africa and many places in the world, specifically in Somalia. 1 in 7 children who are born die before they are the age of 5. 735 women per 100,000 population die of maternal-related diseases and causes. So I feel very privileged to be here because I could have been among those children. I could have been among the statistic of those who died from simple preventable diseases like malaria, diarrhea, malnutrition, and other preventable infectious diseases that could be prevented with simple hygiene practices, with simple vaccination. Where now in majority of the African countries, like 11%, only 11% of the whole entire nation of children and women are vaccinated, and that is very sad and very devastating. Where now we live in the US, we are asking people to get vaccinated to protect ourselves and fight this pandemic. Where in Africa, they are crying for the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. This is why I felt like as a civilian, as a citizen of the global world, to contribute and do my part. And that's why I'm here today. And so with all of that, this landed me to the career of my dream, the career of my life, which was to do something back home to help my people in Africa, which led me to work with the Addis Clinic as a senior program manager today. I was just recently hired this year in April. Before that, I was working with the CDC Foundation to help with the COVID-19 stuff. And today, honestly, I'm very happy that I'm working with the Addis Clinic because the Addis Clinic is doing the things people did for me when I was in the refugee camp. One of the things that narrowed my career and pursuing my career in public health / global health was that as a child, I always remember those humanitarian staff in the uniform. I would see a vest that says UN, I would see a vest that says World Relief, I would see a vest that says Catholic Medical Mission Board. And I thought to myself, who really were those people? They didn't know me, but they were helping me a lot. They were really helping me. They were handing their hands to me. They were ensuring that I was safe and healthy. So I still remember that blurry picture of people helping me. I didn't know who they are, but they helped me, and I thought maybe I want to become like them, and I want to help and give back. And that's why I'm with the Addis Clinic as a global health professional and supporting that. My main role is basically to develop programs and interventions that can save women and children have access to healthcare, quality healthcare through humanitarian telemedicine. And majority of these interventions are cost effective. Although I may not see these people, but I know I'm making a tremendous impact in a small, gentle way. And that is what we need as global citizens. So I'm so honored, and I really appreciate you all for listening to me. Because I have never heard of McMinnville. Actually, when I was coming, I was doing the research and I learned a lot about this beautiful city. I was enjoying the ride coming here, and I learned that it's the nursery capital of the world. And I was just comparing that to where I came from and now in McMinnville. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing the city wrong. Where people here are farming for fun. People here are planting vegetables for fun. Where I remember when I was little, I would go to find greens to eat to survive. I would help my mom plant plants to survive to eat so that I have the right nutrition as a child growing up. So I hope that you guys will support our work at the Addis Clinic. Thank you so much for listening and for having me today. Thank you.